Do you want to close out just by saying your name, what you're going to be doing next season, and your pronouns, because I don't think I got those in the first one.
Yeah, my name is Keaton Hughes. I'm going to be leading either a trail or saw cruise in this coming season with the Southwest Conservation Corps, and I use they, them pronouns. I was born out on the Front Range, lived in Denver and Colorado Springs. My family moved down to Florida when I was 9 or 10. Lived down there, a few places around Florida, went to school there. So this work was kind of my way of getting back to Colorado.
I see.
I have vague childhood memories of like Sand Dunes National Park, where my crew actually got to work this past season. I think I might remember Salida and BV, but I don't know if it's another mountain town. I was like 7 or 8 at the time, so it's...
What do you like specifically about like nature here?
I mean, I think it's kind of inherently political and very historically fraught. I think on a individual level, like it's super nice that there's so much public land, and like it's just that the Rocky Mountains just feel like this wall. Obviously, I've driven for 2 seasons from Florida to here, helping some friends move up to Oregon and then moving back down at one point. And we were always just pushing for the Rockies. We can look at any free campsite website and there's going to be a ton of great spots. I'd be remiss if I didn't. It's very convenient to not think about why that is sometimes. Places that, most notably around the Black Hills, but it absolutely applies here too. But in places where, we have relatively good knowledge of like both pre-Columbian and like even like Columbian to reservation Native American life are out here. Like we know how people interacted with the land, how they maintained it. That's so still built into the landscape. And like it's really fun that all it's public lands and it lets us do what we do here now, especially with like around Salida. We can camp, we can live, but it's enjoying it, I think, is often predicated on not thinking too hard about that.
Absolutely.
My first season I was actually with a whole nother corps when I was like 19, and I made it like 3 weeks and got depressed and dropped out.
Oh, really? Do you mind if I just ask what kind of crew was that one? Was it like a 14ers one? Or?
It was with RMYC, Rocky Mountain Youth Corps, and their roving trail crews are full-time.
Oh, okay.
You load up the van and the trailer, and then you work for 5 days, and then you do laundry and do like you have like a crew excursion on Saturday. You do laundry, you get a couple hours in town on Sunday, and then back out.
Well, at 19...
Yeah.
And full-time.
Yeah.
I feel like that's understandable.
And it has a lot of advantages. Like I know some of my co-members on that crew were able to, A, they didn't need a car. B, like, you weren't spending money the whole time. You'd, get a couple of pairs of socks when you're in town, probably a nice meal, but other than that, saving everything up. So it was a lot, you needed a lot less going into it. Mm-hmm. But I love that we have 6 days off. That's so much great alone time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was on a 6-month kind of like long-term crew with Southeast Conservation Corps, it wasn't quite at the level that we try and do for like the Leaders of Color crew here at Southwest, but they wanted to give us some sets of trainings. In particular, I think some of the members were able to get their wilderness first aid certifications, and then after my season had ended, but kind of like halfway through that, they have a much later fall term there, so I was like there through September, but then there were a few other crews that stayed on, and about halfway through that term they brought out a really great trainer by the name of Rebecca Pike. Rebecca Pike she's really where I developed like the rule of like, if there's a 5'2" woman in her late 50s, and she's revered as an expert in this field. Go to her. She was a phenomenal teacher. Well, I only got my A bucker then, so only cutting logs that are on the ground, not actually bringing down trees.
Oh, interesting.
It's a lot more common for crosscut sawyers.
Oh, okay.
Because you're only cutting in wilderness areas, it's going to be pretty rare that you're actually going to be dropping trees. This past season, I was a leader on some of the short-term trail crews at Southwest Conservation Corps. Kind of been with SCC for a few years now. I did a leader season out east with Southeast Conservation Corps in Chattanooga, but then before that was a couple member seasons out here, saw work, trail work.
Do you have a favorite part about it?
Long term, probably the chainsaw work, but I did really, really enjoy my crosscut season. It was hard, and it was it was the height of COVID regulations within Conservation Legacy. So we were on these 10 days on, 4 days off, hiking way into the backcountry. Even a relatively good season, crosscut crews fall apart all the time, but I just had an amazing crew. You really have to get along with everyone,
mm-hmm.
which is a little bit easier because we were smaller crews then. I think it was 6 of us. And yeah, I think the furthest back we went was 15 miles, but there are people that do 25, 30 miles.
Oh, wow.
One of the things that I really enjoy about SCC is that, especially when facing towards members, but even really with a lot of the backstage stuff, our co-leader pairs are pretty co-equal. There's one leader who's on staff and signs paperwork and is legally responsible, but with actually doing things, pretty much everyone does everything. With some of the other corps, how I did it at Southeast, was a little bit more of an assistant crew leader and leader dynamic. So I did assistant crew lead out there to kind of get into it.
I see.
It was weird being in an actual big city. I have no idea off the top of my head how many people are in Chattanooga, but it's museums and a zoo, and I think it definitely has some advantages for the program. They could run a lot more youth crews out of one central office, do a lot more very casual youth crews. They had a bike crew program, and as well as access to kind of just more communities and a little bit more support. They have an ASL crew. I think most of the crew had cochlear implants, so they had some interaction with project partners, but
nice.
Also lots of ASL among the staff. That would be a lot farther journey for a lot more people to get everyone out to a place like SCC.
How was your experience last season, being somebody who is genderqueer as lead?
I really pulled on some of my experiences from SECC Southeast out in Chattanooga. I started out, introduced myself he, him, or they, them, either's fine. But then that there's that one introduction in the first circle, you're trying to remember everyone's names, there's 30 people, that kind of, not through any malice, it just gets lost even among my crew. Kind of a third of the way in, someone else started using they, them pronouns, and and it was this big moment of reminding me that okay, this, it's kind of being my more authentic self, and that's just a good thing to do anyway. But it was also a good reminder that by existing and being upfront from the start can also be encouraging for others. And it worked out great. I that. It was very comforting for me to have a member come out and using they, them pronouns, and then I could join in with that. But that really reinforced for me for this past season out here at SCC to just go from the start. They, them pronouns is more authentic for me. No reason to mince words there. When you are that kind of layperson expert, there can be pushback against that, and maybe people are going to doubt your abilities, but sometimes our work just takes us out into the wilderness. We don't interact with people. I find that to be a great source of feeling of belonging, that I know where my skills are, I can always kind of fall back on that as like, I deserve to be here because of, I've kind of earned it in a sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
My back just kind of hurts a little bit all the time. Before this season, I used to say that I would expect to have like one really bad multi-day back spasm over the course of like once every 6 months, like once a season. But then I had one in summer season, I had one an off hitch at the end of summer season, then I had one fall season, then I had one this February. So clearly my back is hurting a little bit more and more throughout the course of this work. One of the things that's really driven home is how in the core world, I really like the kind of leeway that we have to kind of look out for ourselves. If I, as a leader, and this has happened, if I hurt myself in the field, if I get a back spasm and I can't really work for a couple days, there's still things I can do, ways I can contribute, and even if I can't, like, it's totally understandable, reasonable to like take some time, rest, heal. I have a hard time like going and working a 6-hour shift and then like trying to just have a normal day after that. I like giving a hitch my full attention, giving it my all. We have these long 10-hour days where they're really
more than 10 hours.
Yeah. Especially if something goes wrong. Yeah. You get 10-hour days, then chores, and you're up in the morning, and if something goes wrong, you might be... I remember when I was applying for jobs, I knew the fact that I put SCC on my resume, I didn't want to, like, get a job just for a couple of weeks and then quit immediately, because then that's going to get around, people know that. Maybe it's not a big deal, but, everyone just knows everyone. But I think it also has big advantages. Some are like, big and logistical and staff level. I think in my times when I've lived in bigger cities and it's kind of more anonymous, like there aren't as many places to reach out and kind of get that kind of mutual support. On the other hand, in a big city, you can also just like go to the store and buy most things you need, and it's not always as true around here, but I think that's worth it. Not to start on a downer, but housing is on everyone's mind in Salida. And not for lack of trying. There are definitely some people who are advocating for better housing arrangements. I just recently started renting with a few other friends from SCC, and like half our furniture is from other people around here. We've got a couch from one of our friends, Jetty. We've got a bed from the guest room of one of our bosses that has now been turned into a nursery. Like our plate set is from one of my roommate's siblings. Like it's not great that we kind of have to, that we can't afford furniture, but it's also great that you can build some of those casual systems of... I'm very interested. I love, especially with the leader community with Southwest, but also with members, that we have a really great foundation of like at least a little bit of medical training. I think it's a really vital part of mutual aid, kind of like building communities that look out for each other. But there's a safe living situation for people who are like living out of their cars. You can rent like and kind of telling how expensive stuff is in Salida. If you want a spot to park your car and have a bathroom and a shower, that's $300 a month. And that's like amazing. That's phenomenal. I wish that was here when I was a member. While it's a cool, like hip little town that I love living in, it's also like in the middle of ranch country, and it comes with a lot of the hang-ups and biases that come with that. Yeah, I distinctly remember when in my crosscut season, it was one of our last hitches, and we were driving over Poncha Pass, so like 20 minutes outside of town, and we ended up in our SCC rigs behind 3 trucks traveling together, all with 3%er militia stickers on their back windows. I know that at some point there was an article that came out about, like, I don't know if it was 3%ers or someone else, but yeah, militias just like sometimes train at the gun range around here.
Mm-hmm.
Salida is, I don't know if there's a way to say it objectively, but can feel better than it maybe is if there are parts of your identity that you can turn down. Like, I can put on my Dickies and like a jean shirt and, you know, go into the ranch supply store and be just fine. So I think like the ability to like be like a visible minority in any way sometimes, but not others, I think is also why we get a lot of, you know, as you said, like a lot of silence from even people who are, you know, ostensibly part of some oppressed group, because it doesn't feel as bad all the time. But I really want to build up skills and the kind of work we do that I can then pass on and share. We've been pretty spoiled at the SCC. We have a ton of really great sawyers around. You know, at this past season, we had like 3 sea sawyers of various types on staff, and then a couple more like on reserve that we could bring in from the community, and that's just unheard of. Like, people fly in sea sawyers for training sometimes, and that's a high bar. Like, I'm not sure I'll ever get there. I might just not get that much time on a saw in my life. But I think, especially with our affinity crews, our sources of perceived legitimacy, I think teaching them really, really well and in ways that are really affirming can be so valuable, but also I think is a big task. So I'm eager to kind of learn from people in our community, build up those skills to help teach others.
I think we have enough, and it's been really enlightening speaking with you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a great chat.
I do enjoy having these conversations, especially with like people I haven't gotten to like know fully because they weren't on my crew. With Lika, it was like pretty constant, like just chatting and stuff. But it's nice to hear somebody else's perspective as well. If you want to close out just by saying your name, what you're going to be doing next season, and your pronouns, because I don't think I got those in the first one.
Yeah, my name is Keaton Hughes. I'm going to be leading either a trail or saw cruise in this coming season with Southwest Conservation Corps, and I use they, them pronouns.